Yes, I think the Dobbs versus Mississippi abortion decision actually has meaning to your Second Amendment rights. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and a proud American gun owner. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. We really would appreciate it. I just want to talk for a couple minutes about what I think this leak of the Supreme Court opinion in Dobbs versus Mississippi means. Now, I apologize for not getting this video out to you sooner, but the reality is I've been super busy. I did a lot of television on this on Fox and other things like that, so it's been hard for me to get this video shot. So I'm going to try to cut to the chase on what I think this means. Let me tell you why I think this draft opinion by Sam Alito is very good news for your Second Amendment rights. Remember, there's two things that are important when the Supreme Court takes a case. Number one is this: who wins the case? Does the petitioner or the plaintiff, does the defendant or respondent win the case? So obviously winning the case is important for the parties involved. Who wins is very important, but that's not the only important thing. And in many respects, it's not the most important thing. You see, the other important thing is the rationale, the explanation about why the party who wins or loses the case wins or loses the case. So that's what the opinions do. Remember, a decision as to who wins is, the plaintiff wins or the defendant wins. And then the explanation or the opinions are very important because it's the opinions, the rationale, the explanations that are going to be followed by courts all around the country for years, if not decades to come. Now, Sam Alito, it appears, drafted the majority opinion because there's at least 5 votes in favor of basically upholding the Mississippi law, probably reversing Roe v. Wade. We don't know. Of course, all this is speculative, but it appears as if Sam Alito was assigned the obligation, the duty to write the majority opinion because he was in the majority, which means the 5 or more justices said, we're going to uphold the Mississippi law saying that you can ban abortion after 15 weeks of a pregnancy and possibly even reversing Roe v. Wade. Now, why does this matter to the Second Amendment? I think it's very good news for Second Amendment rights for a couple of reasons. First of all, let's cut to the chase. Abortion, regardless of what you think about it, is a third rail kind of issue. It is a hot button, controversial, big time political fight in the United States, regardless of what side you're on, if you're on any side. The fact that the Supreme Court has 5 or more justices willing to take on Roe v. Wade and reverse it, if they're willing to do that by being faithful to the text of the Constitution, because remember, there's nothing in the text of the Constitution that refers to abortion. And if you look at American history, much of American history, if not most of American history, up until 1973, when Roe v. Wade was decided, there was a lot of restrictions on abortion. It wasn't viewed like a right to keep and bear arms, which is we're a gun culture. No one would say that America has been an abortion culture since the founding, but we certainly are a gun culture since the founding. The reason why this is important is if you look at the draft opinion for Sam Alito involving Dobbs, he tracks the history of abortion in America and shows that it was never viewed as a right. In fact, in many instances, it was basically banned, restricted, or criminalized. Again, it's not about the history of abortion. It's how the Supreme Court approached it. Now, why this is important to your Second Amendment rights is because it suggests this is how the Supreme Court is now thinking about constitutional interpretation. They look very heavily at the history behind the text. First of all, they look at the text of the Constitution. In the context of the Second Amendment, you have textual rights, the right to keep and bear arms, that protects your rights. It's actually in the text of the Constitution. It's in the Second Amendment. In contrast, of course, abortion is not mentioned in the text of the Constitution. So when Sam Alito in his draft opinion says abortion is not in the text, that's not the problem when it comes to guns because we have it in the text. The second thing is, if you look at how Sam Alito argues his draft opinion, he basically is saying that abortion is not a longstanding right. In contrast, the right to keep and bear arms is a longstanding right. In fact, if you look at the language of the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It actually does not create a right to keep and bear arms. The Second Amendment does not create your right to have guns. No. The Second Amendment merely memorializes or codifies your pre-existing right to keep and bear arms that existed before the Constitution. It existed before the Second Amendment. Okay, so that's what's so important. I think that the fact that the second thing is, if the Supreme Court is willing to take on the abortion fights, which is a tough fight, we can agree on that, they certainly, I would say, would be willing to take on another tough fight involving the Second Amendment. Bear in mind that this Supreme Court has also agreed to hear an affirmative action case called race discrimination in college admissions out of Harvard. So if this Supreme Court, as it's currently constituted, is willing to take on affirmative action cases, and they're willing to take on abortion cases and maybe even reverse Roe v. Wade, I think that's a good sign that they're willing to enforce the Second Amendment as it's written and as it was understood historically. So I hope you learned something here today at the Four Boxes Diner. And again, we'll see you soon here at the Four Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.